Yes. Hi, I'm Matt and welcome back to part 2 of the FMS Edge 540. Now this is an absolutely fantastic model and tomorrow is a maiden day, hence that's why I'm recording this episode here with me this evening, because I want to show you before she goes out for a maiden. Now there are some things which I like about this model. In fact, there's a lot of things which I like about this model, and there's a couple of things which I don't like about this model, if I'm frankly honest, and I'll get to those shortly. But I would say overall, if I'd been and bought this model out of my own money, I can tell you the experience so far has been absolutely fantastic. An epically huge, great big box like we saw in the unboxing, monstrous. There's no hiding that one from the wife, to be honest. And the overall quality of this kit is, it far surpasses anything else which I've previously been and bought. Total build time, I would say about 90 minutes all in, so an hour and a half. Now for me, that was spread over a couple of days while I was doing other stuff, and I've had other builds going on here in the background. But nothing was rocket science, it was all straightforward. In fact, the only two pieces which you need to glue are these little fillets back here. The rest of it's all screws and it's straightforward. It really is straightforward. Any experienced pilot, and let's just face this, this is an experienced pilot. This model is really meant for an experienced pilot, so it's not a good first model. I wouldn't suggest it for a second model, but definitely for a third model, it would be absolutely bonkers. Like I said, the quality in this kit is unreal. Now, with that said, I do have a little list of things which I'm going to run through. So the first thing, the general build quality is absolutely fantastic. Like I said, only 2 points need to be glued. It was all straightforward. So, I'll show you on the iPad in just a few moments' time, but there's glue running down the movable surfaces. So on both ailerons, the elevator and the rudder, they've put like a rubberized glue all the way down the edges, and it's such a small detail but ensures that those surfaces last for longer, something which I've not seen provided in another kit. Normally I have to do that with either a bit of hot glue or a tiny little wipe of goop glue or something like that, and this kit, they've gone to those kind of lengths to ensure that the model lasts. So I was genuinely surprised by that. Now, what have we got on there? Quality of the parts, absolutely fantastic. This propeller is super rigid, really like it. The control horns, the push rods, all super good quality, like up there on like a scale of like 9 out of 10 for quality. They are absolutely fantastic. The only area which you could even say, well, the only way which you can make them better is by using carbon fibre, but even that would be probably overkill for a model like this. Ease of build, like I said, 90 minutes all in. It literally is a 90-minute build, including, and I mean including, setting up your transmitter with a couple of rates. Really straightforward. Oh, the one thing which I would say is that this model did come with a Dean's connector. I don't use Dean's connectors, I use XT60s, so that was really straightforward. All I did was, before the propeller was on, I took this front cowl off, which just pops off because it's held on there with magnets, pulled the wires out and around, which you can do from underneath, pulled it out the front, and then just soldered it up on the desk and then poked them back through. Really, really straightforward, and took, what, 5 minutes? Something like that, not very long at all. Oh, the other thing is as well, the instructions, the manual which come with this kit is the best instructions which I've ever seen for a model, and I genuinely mean that. Absolutely brilliant. And if those 90 minutes doesn't include the even in bed which I sat reading the manual, and it's also important that you do read the manual, because then you'll know that the C of G is 8 centimeters back from the leading edge, and I do have a pair of pins actually sat in up underneath the wings so I can feel them just to make sure the C of G is correct on the flight line. It also gives you suggestions over throws as well for the elevator, the rudder and the ailerons. Now, looking at the throws in the manual, this one is going to be rather sensitive to the elevator, so it is quite dumbed down in their low rate settings, so do watch out for that. I will know more tomorrow when we take her out for a maiden. So make sure you're subscribed so that you actually see the maiden when that episode is released. Now, like I said, there are a couple of things which I didn't like, and I've also got written on there which is hacks. Now, what I'm going to quickly do is turn this model up the other way around, and then we'll have a look at the two things which I had to tweak on this model. Now, it's not the fault of the model, it's my fault because I didn't actually buy the recommended servos, and instead I used the ones which I had here available to me. So I've been and flipped her upside down. I'm going to go and grab the iPad, and then we're going to go and take a closer look at a couple of key points on here. So let's go and grab ourselves the iPad, and the first thing is the servos in the wings. Now, they did come with these little plastic cages, which I thought was actually kind of a neat idea, but none of the servos which I had would actually fit the little plastic cages which they provided. So instead, what I've done is that I've got the servo in here, which is, I want to make sure I get this right, it's a DS329MG. It's a Corona servo, which I believe off the top of my head gives us 3.8 kilograms of torque, which is loads for the ailerons. And I am using the extended servo control horn as well. And you can just see the push rod here and the quality of these control horn which they provided. And those are the ball joint ones too. Really, really nice. And if we look along this edge, let me go and grab a pen just to show you. And by the way, apologies, the camera's a bit shaky because I'm using the iPad. If you look all the way down that edge there, you'll see that if they put a thin little bead of glue in there so that our surfaces last longer, and we've got a great big spar which runs all the way along the surface, pretty much the whole length of the aileron itself. I tell you what, while we're here, let's take a quick note in the bottom battery bay. Really strong magnets, and in fact, let me just make a point. That's strong. You hear that click down then. This is where I've been and put my receiver up underneath. Now, the only overall negative which I'd say for this model is that these wing fastenings, the wings are held on with 4 screws. So we can see that there's one back here, there's another one here, and of course there's another one there and another one there as well. That's only the real long-term negative which I can say for this model, is that it will be a little bit tricky on the flight line, so you'll make sure you need to get one of those model stands so that you can easily put this model upside down to take the wings off, maybe if you've got a smaller car or so. But to be honest, mine are screwed in, and I will put the seats down in the back of the car. The landing gear was really straightforward, literally 4 screws, and that was the job done. Underneath there, really, really straightforward. Now, coming back to the servo, the servos which I had, I tried 4 different sizes and none of them fitted. So up on your screen right now is a photograph of some parts. So I've got the servo, and you'll see that we've got some 4 pieces of balsa wood around the outside. And then the next photo up on your screen will show you those pieces of balsa which have then been hot glued in to provide all-round support for the servo. And then I've been and finished it off, and you'll see on here I've got some glass fibre tape, I've put some white packaging tape on top of here, and I've also put some blendum along the edges too. Now, I do need to go and move this model around. You'll have to give me a moment while we just flicker up and so we can have a look at the tail. And the reason why I'm going to highlight this, oh, there was one other section which you did need to highlight, and apologies, she is, talk about value for money, the model is just monstrously huge, and you'll see that I'm using a cushion because I really do care for the paintwork on here. They've obviously spent their time, effort and energy here with the paintwork, so I do want to keep her as pretty as possible. So let's take the iPad back up. There was one other point which you needed, 3 other points is down here for the hinges for the rudder fin. Those did need a little dab of CA in there, really straightforward, and then you do the screw up. There's 2 screws here by the control linkages which you do up tight to hold the little wheel in steady. Now, again, these little servo bays, I did have a bit of a fight with them, and the reason why I had a fight with them is because the servos just wouldn't fit. Now, the servos which I was using, they had little rubber bungs on the back, so that is the Corona DS238MG. I believe they're about 3 kilos, maybe more, of torque in those. No, they might be 1.8. Anyway, they're quite pokey, put it that way. And I did have a bit of a challenge putting those in. So up on your screen right now is a photograph of what I had to do with the Dremel, and just to dig it out in there so I could actually get the servo in. That is the only bits which I struggled with this whole build, was around putting the servos in. And there's the opposite wing. You see I've done exactly the same on the opposite side. Now I have been and made a slight tweak to this model, and it's only very slight, and you'll probably have to do exactly the same, but it really does depend upon the battery which you're using. And let me just turn it back up the other way round, and I'll show you in the top. Now, by the way, really good magnets on here. You'll see it click in there. There's no way that these lids are going to come off in flight. Now, I will be using a great big 5200 4S battery pack in here, and you'll see that I've had to dig a bit of the foam out here and around here just for the lead of the battery to go around. Now, also for a maiden, I really don't know if you you can see it. Now, apologies if this is a bit shaky and not in focus, but just get my finger in here, just there, I've been and velcroed in a little bit of lead. And the reason why I've been and done that is that, so for a maiden, is that she's nose heavy. Now, as much as I trust the manual, I always fly my models, will put them out on a maiden when they're nose heavy. And the reason why I'm doing that is because a tail heavy model is a complete handful, and that's the last thing which I want for such a fantastic model. So let's get the camera in focus, and you'll see the finished quality in there with the pilot is fantastic. And even if we look inside, we can also see there are little dials in the graphic inside there as well. Really, really nice job which they've been and done on this model. So let's get you sat back down there. So, all in all, fantastic value for money. And I know that GearBest sent me this model for review, but the way, and you'll see that I've used quality servos in here, and I will be using some of my best batteries, some of the 5200s as well. Total build time was like 90 minutes, literally all in. It was really, really straightforward, and I'm sure you'll need a little bit longer just to sit there with a cuppa on the desk and read the manual. All in all, fantastic quality. The paint job on it is brilliant. The decals are on there and fantastic. I did struggle with the servos themselves, getting those in, and that was, again, that's my fault because I didn't use the recommended servos or buy those with the kit. So I had to use what I had here. So I did have to hack out both of the little servo bays at the back and then put some balsa wood around the servos for the ailerons. Now, let's be fair here, this is an experienced pilot's model. This definitely is never going to be your first model which you buy, probably not your second, more likely going to be your third model. And for in the price range of, let's say, 120 quid, maybe a little bit more because prices go up and down over time, would I be happy with that money on this model? And right now the answer is yeah. Remember the box when it turned up, it was like this big. It's the biggest box of a model I've ever had here received, ever. It's monstrous, and you may have seen a couple of the models here in the background. It was absolutely monstrous. They all came in pristine condition. The overall quality is fantastic, and that's why I'm doing this overview episode with you this evening, for me anyway, is because we take her out for a maiden tomorrow, and I wanted to show you her at her best before we go out and get her in the sky. Now, you may have noticed there's a little bit of Velcro up underneath. I will be putting dual cameras on there and probably a camera up here on the top as well with a little bit of Velcro so that you can experience this. Now, if you're not already subscribed, make sure you hit the subscribe button so you do catch the maiden. Oh, and I've just realised one big tip for you, because I did read it in the manual, and when I went to do it, I didn't pay any attention and did it the wrong way, is that when you put these propeller pieces on, you put the shorter screws on the outside, and then you put this middle section on next, and then you put the longer screws through that as well. I haven't noticed any wobble in the propeller here, just testing around. It sounds clean as you like, and even with the tiniest bit of throttle here in the office, it wants to go off and fly. So it's going to be a little bit crazy in the sky, to say the least, which is exactly what I want, and I'm sure you want, from a model like this. So that is the build overview to the Edge 540. Fantastic quality kit. There's no two ways about it. This is the only marker which I can give you, which is that if I had paid that kind of money for this model, I would personally be very, very happy with it, because it was quick to build. The obstacles which I had with my equipment were really straightforward to overcome. The mechanical pieces, the control horns, the push rods, all fantastic quality. It's a whacking great big 760 kV motor underneath there. I think it's got, I might be incorrect, but I'm pretty sure it's a 60 amp ESC in there. I had to change the Dean's connector over to an XT60 connector. I had to carve out that battery bay just to make sure that I could run enough battery, and I have put an extra bit of lead in there because I'm paranoid. The only thing which I really have, well no, it's not even a mod, all I've been and done is that on the CG line underneath here, I've just taken some of those dress pins, you know, the ones with the little balls on the top, is that I've just been and poked to underneath there. That's really the only modification which I've been and made to this model, so that when I'm on the flight line, is that I can sit there and just make sure that she balances before we go off and fly her. Brilliant! I genuinely cannot wait to go and fly her tomorrow. So if you have any questions about this model, about this kit, and maybe about the servos underneath, or if you've got any other questions about this model, please just ask in the comments section underneath this video, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. And on that note, from myself, Matt, I can't wait to go and fly tomorrow. I'll see you then. Cheerios!